Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go over how to make a post-process filter, a really basic one for beginners to this or people that just don't know much. So you can make your game go from a default setting like that to something like this, which is brighter and shows more detail with one click of a button and no struggle. So before we get into it, what we're going to do here is we're going to open our post-process filter tab, and you can do that by opening the app bar on the right and looking for post-process filter or searching for it in the top. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to default and we're going to click default. Then we're going to right click and create new, and we're going to call it test. Okay, so now the test filter is applied. The next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to set my peer config to default. Reset to default so we can show what the filter is actually doing and how everything is actually going to be reacting. So now let's right click the test filter and hit edit. Now under here I'm going to show you guys a couple things that we can change that will make a really big difference. So one thing you have, I don't think this is actually default because I already have one called test. Hold on, sorry about that. So another thing, you can't make your new filter the same name as something else. So we're going to go from test to testing. Now we're going to get a default filter. And let's go to color, and there we go. Everything's defaulted on our test filter or testing filter. Let's go back to peer and reset to default. That was my bad, but we're all good now. In case anything like that happens to you guys, I'm not going to edit that out because it's a common mistake. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what these things do. So your overall brightness, this is going to affect everything. You can see how the clouds brighter, car, sun brightness. This is for everything post-process filter related. So if you don't like that some things are too bright and some things aren't, you could try to start by lowering your brightness and see how everything goes from there. This is going to apply a yellow grayscale effect to the game that eventually gets overhued. So I like to keep that at 0, maybe 10-20% at the max. Saturation is how much color is coming in and out of the game. 0 is black, 400 is absolutely crazy. I usually like to run that just a little bit lower for that sense of realism. There's a white balance where the higher number is more yellow, the lower number is more blue, and color temperature is the opposite. The higher number is more blue, the lower number is more yellow. There's a bunch of color grading options that you can try. It changes everything to do with the game and how the color is represented. This is all up to you to try. We're going to skip the auto exposure for now because I think that it's totally fine how it is to start out. And if you want to start editing exposures, you got to start learning to do other things first. Now, chromatic aberration, if you look at the edges of the screen, you'll notice that this effect is adding a little bit of blur and kind of weird color on the edges. So you can always go ahead and try to increase it to see what it's doing. But personally, I would never run chromatic aberration. Now this one, I never know how to say this, okay? I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to call it vignetting again. I know that's wrong, but hey, we're here and we're saying it again. So let's go. And this is going to be the black borders around the edge of the screen. See how now you can't see anything around? And the big change for this is a lot of people like this when you're inside of the car because it adds sort of like a helmet effect. It adds a really focusing effect on the road in front of you. rather than having everything all around you completely visible. The next thing that we're going to get into is glare. And for glare, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to change my pure config just a little bit because I want to represent what the glare is doing more than what it's not doing. And to get this represented properly, we have to just increase some things a little bit. I'm not going to make a crazy thing happen here, but I do want to make sure that I can see more of the game. So maybe we'll go increase our brightness in the actual filter itself. And then another thing we're going to do here is just go into my light, and we're going to turn this up a little bit more. And we're going to decrease the cloud contrast and make the day a little more day-like. Add some cloud brightness. I want to fix the brightness there at the sides of the track and maybe make it just a little less black. So for that, sometimes you can go a click or two down on the contrast. Sometimes that's going to make the game look a little grayscaled, so that's all up to you how you want to adjust your contrast levels. But you can see from this angle, it's a little dark on the track and the shadows. But let's move on to the glare, just so we can get started here. So turn the lights on your car, and a good way to see your glare is by going to nighttime. And we're going to see the glare that's coming off the lights in the background. We're going to see the glare on the lights there. We're going to see the glare on the back of the car with the lights there. Alright, so what we're going to do here is if you hold Alt-L, you're also going to get your high beams. And a good way to test your glare effects is by using that Alt-L option to turn those high beams up. And let's adjust some glare here. So what we're going to do is, I don't like this effect. I don't like all those dots, so I'm actually turning that off. I turn that off myself. And what we can check out here is the luminance is going to focus on all of the luminance around the light and in the light. There's going to be a threshold where the lower the threshold, the more the game will extract bloom from things, where the higher the threshold, the brighter something has to be to get the bloom effects coming off of it. So I usually do lower that a little bit. I don't like running 0. Now the other thing here is the bloom luminance gamma. As you can see, the more we increase that, the more of that really big ball bloom effect that we get in the background, right? So this is where your personal preference really comes into play, adjusting all of this bloom stuff, because you can make the bloom levels higher, you can make that stuff higher, and if you go to custom shape, you can turn up the bloom luminance even. See that? You know, you start really cranking this stuff up, and you can have any sort of lighting effect that you really want, right? So you can increase the star luminance and everything down here too. And if we go to the star shape, where's the star shape? Use custom shape, star shape. You guys are probably seeing this before me. What's the star streak number? So in theory, another thing we should be seeing here is some stars coming off of this. So if we turn up the star luminance, what you'll see now is that's how you get those effects of the lights to have the lines and everything like that, without having to use those other glare effects that might not look too good. So again, this isn't how I run the game, but this is how you get all these effects up, and that's why I'm showing you guys this, because you can really turn things up. You can turn things down with the luminance and have the bloom luminance all high, so you know, even with a little bit of light you still get a lot of bloom. It's all up to you to come in here and just mess around and find out what type of bloom settings that you actually like, and how many star streaks you want, if any at all, and how bright you want them to be. This is where the money is for all of your lighting effects and your glare effects and everything like that. So that's really what I wanted to show you guys today, because it's a really simple way to take no filter and turn it into whatever filter you want and make the game however you want to be. And then of course, when you go back into daytime, you're gonna have to make all of your adjustments for the daytime and figure out where you want the game to be in the daytime and how you want things to be, right? But that is the basics of how you do everything. that you need to do in order to just fix up a quick post-process filter and make things look better for yourself without having to compromise extremely on the gameplay and what you're doing, or wasting your time trying to figure out other filters and stuff like that. It's all about your personal preferences and how you want the game to be, and that's just the way you got to adjust it. Nobody's gonna make the game exactly how you want it to be all of the time. You're gonna have to spend some time and you're gonna have to make the game how you want it to be, but that's how you can do it. Just edit the post-process filter on default pure config and then change the pure config to be how you want it to be. Or if you find it easier to do the pure config than the post-process filter, you can do that too. Have a good day, everybody. Take care. Stay gaming.